Hey, this is Roland. Today we're going to re-release What's Your Baseline Shorts from about 2.5 years ago. And the topic of today is how to create dashboards. I'm not thinking about how to do this mechanically in your tool of choice. I'm thinking about what is the thinking behind it. That might be because I'm currently writing on the chapter about dashboarding and storytelling in my upcoming second book, Successful Process Mining. So, without further ado, enjoy What's Your Baseline Shorts 6, How to Create a Good Dashboard. Welcome to What's Your Baseline Shorts.
In this series, we're distilling down our usual long-form content from the What's Your Baseline podcast into a more concentrated and visual form.
Right, but most importantly, this is a brief, focused discussion about a key topic in architecture, process, business, change, and so much more.
One topic, one session, one take. That's What's Your Baseline Shorts.
My name is Roland and today I'm joined by my co-host, J.M. Merlinson. Hey JM, how are you doing today?
Hey Roland, I'm doing all right. I'm excited to be recording another What's Your Baseline Shorts.
Yeah, and I see you have a different studio today.
I know, I've moved, but hey, it's a different studio, but the same high quality What's Your Baseline Short fun we have. And today's topic is something that's really near and dear to my heart, which is all about creating dashboards. I know a lot of people do this for a ton of different reasons, but they often get it wrong or struggle to deliver the message that they're looking to deliver to the right people at the right time. So, Roland, I know we struggle with this a lot as well, but what are some of our lessons learned? Let's start having a conversation because this is a tough topic, but it's really important.
Yeah, so first of all, talk to me, JM. What is a dashboard? Is it the weekly status report, the PowerPoint slide, or the Excel that you have filled up with macros, or what is the dashboard?
Well, really, a dashboard can be anything, right? You think about a dashboard as a way of visualizing data sets that provide a story. They tell a story to you. So it could be a chart in Excel. It could be, a status report that has visualizations that are able to capture and showcase what's going on. But from my perspective, what makes a dashboard really powerful is when it's able to provide the right information at the right time. And that means that a lot of dashboards aren't just a static thing. They are a dynamic thing. They're ever evolving as the circumstances that the dashboard's looking to measure change. How about you, Roland? What do you see as the most important thing for dashboards here?
Yeah, I would have it a little bit more narrower from a definition perspective. I would say a dashboard is something that you do in a dashboarding tool.
Oh.
So it's not just filling out your standard PowerPoint template that you schlep to the status meeting every week.
Sure.
Right? But I agree. The topic here is data storytelling.
Yeah.
Right. And I see a lot of things where this goes south, because dashboards sometimes are just an afterthought in the project.
I know.
Like, oh, shoot, we need to put something on the screen. We need to monitor our KPIs and all these things. So what I see is, what I actually don't like is that one size fits all dashboard design, where you see a gazillion of KPIs and things move and you have whatever animations and whatnot, and that just kills me.
Yeah, and that also implies something really important. One thing you need to think about when you're looking at dashboarding, it's not just who you send on the email trail. There needs to be some sort of permissioning and segmentation in the way you do your dashboarding. The right people need to see this. And so first and foremost, figure out who those people are, because if you're designing a dashboard for everyone, then no one gets any value out of it. When you design a dashboard for one role, one particular thing they're looking for, a family of KPIs, a collection of insights, well, now you've got a real targeted solution.
I agree. So the first thing when I do dashboarding projects is take a step back and just as you said, look at the stakeholders.
Yeah.
Who is it for and what is their information need? And then I simply create a matrix, and I say, okay, stakeholders here, information needs here on a very, very high level.
Right. And also remember that your information needs aren't the KPIs necessarily. Right? The KPIs describe...
No, that's a higher level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're abstracting. The KPIs describe how that information is going to be communicated. So if you want to understand, how often do we satisfy our SLAs? The KPI around that might be a very specific thing like on-time delivery in full OTIF, but that's not, it's one level of abstraction beneath that. So first you have to...
Agreed. That's the next step.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think the first step is just to rationalize, okay, who is it for?
Yes.
Who is it not for?
Absolutely.
And what is the big bucket that you see? And when you fill out that table, what you will see is some of the stakeholder groups share
information areas.
Yeah.
And they need to look at the same thing. The next question, though, is, do they really have to look at the same thing? Or do they look at different KPIs? One might be more aggregated than the other one who's in much more details.
Yeah, and
right?
well, if I'm trying to struggle for KPIs, for instance, I'm a company who hasn't done a lot of this measurement before. Where can I find that information? Because I know that a lot of times people are kind of making it up or like best guesses or sort of buying it off the market. What are some common places you might go to get those?
So I would look first and foremost for two areas. So if you look for operational KPIs, I think a good address is always this APQC.
Sure, right.
The American Productivity and Quality Council. They give you KPI definitions and explain why you should measure this or this. And the other one would be maybe industry-specific work groups. Think about the Supply Chain Council, right? And their score model. What do they look for in supply chain situations? And look at those, and this brings us to the second step. Define your KPIs. Right. And one thing that I like to do is to create a KPI tree.
Yeah.
To say, for this dashboard, we want to look at, for example, technical KPIs, and I decompose them. How many documents go through that interface?
Yes.
Or what's the uptime of my servers, right? I want to have process KPIs based on those frameworks. Do I produce the right amount of widgets in the right amount of time, in the right amount of quality, for example, and so on and so forth. And in that KPI tree, what I like to do is I not only put in the KPI, but I also put a little description to the side of it to say, we're measuring this because that's what you actually want to know, right? And that helps then to figure out where you get the measures from.
Exactly, yeah, because otherwise you're going to be saying, I'd love to know this stuff, but you haven't got your systems configured to actually capture that information. So that's, I think when I see KPI trees, my next question is always, where does that data come from? What format is it served up in? Remember that if you're looking to fill dashboards, it can be an incredibly tedious and arduous and manual process if you're just exporting table into flat file, doing some Excel magic on it, and then populating it into your BI tool. That's incredibly cumbersome. You want to try and find ways of hooking into those systems so you're not having to do this manual pull and push every time.
Yeah, but those junior consultants don't cost a lot.
I see you haven't paid for a lot of their invoices. Oh boy.
No, in all seriousness, I'm with you. So you not only have to find the systems that you want to pull data from, you obviously have to define the format, you have to define the sequence, how often you get it. Is it real time? Is it a batch that runs every day or every 2 days or whatever, right?
And can I just interject here?
Every single source.
Because a lot of people love to say real time. They always want real time. And I always use the word relatively real time. You want to get data in as fast as you can make decisions about that data. So if you're making a change on how your supply chain is working, you're trying to interject in the middle of a flow, and your supply chain, you're like end to end, is going to take you like 30 days. If you get data every minute, you're not going to be able to make changes and act on that data every minute. You're just wasting system resources. Get data as frequently as that data is useful to you. Real time is expensive, and that's overkill.
Not only that, take it from the old man, with the gray beard. The person in front of the screen needs to be able to process what he or she sees.
Yeah.
Right. And we as humans are typically not as good in doing the real-timey thing. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. Maybe a daily update is sufficient, or 4 hours or weekly or whatever it is. The other thing is, and I think our listeners will already get a gist of it, dashboard implementations are actually implementations. So in my opinion, you need a solution architecture, right? So we started with the information needs, what are the objectives? We looked at the KPI tree. Oh, guess what? What do we want to know? We looked at the applications and the measures. So we go down even further down. So what I would recommend is go and create a solution architecture document, quote unquote, right? Your bunch of graphics and charts that you will create, wireframes and all these type of things, and shop them around.
Yeah.
Right? To say, okay, is that exactly what you want to know? Because then you might see, stakeholder 1 needs to know the same as stakeholder 2, but I can reuse this thing for stakeholder 3 as well.
Right.
That's special information from that one system.
Yeah, you're talking about collaborative and iterative design. If you're not talking to people and you're not iterating on your dashboards, you're more likely to produce things that A, aren't well vetted, so you haven't had a chance to go through and hone it, and B, aren't what they need because you haven't had a chance to talk to them about it. So talk to people, iterate on dashboards.
Oh, I agree. Yeah,
and
that's the process behind it.
The thing you're iterating on is the design, right? So one of the things I love to do with dashboards, and sort of moving into the solution design part of things, is I love to take a look at wireframes right off the bat. I want to present information to stakeholders before I actually go and implement it with how it might look in there. And remember, in your wireframes, you're also trying to understand storytelling and emergent features. If you're not sure what emergent features are, think about it like this. If you've got a bunch of dials that tell you what the normal range for something is, and they're going to be pointing up, straight up and down, and you layer them vertically, what people are going to see is a straight line when everything is good. And instantly they'll understand and see if there's any variation. That line that those 4 widgets create is broken. That's what we call an emergent feature, when multiple widgets interact with each other, and you can use that as a meta-analysis of all that data.
But use it when you do your wireframing, use it in the first place as low fidelity.
Yeah, sure.
Take those black and white, squiggly line, pencil drawn, whatever thingies, if your tool supports this, and do this because you want to tell the story, right? Where do you go on that screen from, in Western countries, upper left-hand side to down, lower right-hand side, how we read here. The other thing that you should do, once you have that, and you have the high-level story being there, you should start establishing a style guide.
Yes.
Your information is a hierarchy. What's the most important thing that you want your stakeholders to see first? So that means, most likely, this widget that has that most important information will be the most prominent that you have, right? The biggest one in it, and the other ones are smaller. Or think about formatting, think about headlines. Put text beside your widgets that explain what somebody sees, because otherwise they might shrug and say, oh yeah, it's just another bar chart.
Yeah, the other piece of the puzzle is understand, we call the measures and dimensions. So what are you actually calculating and how are you filtering it? And help to provide things like filter conditions for people so they can quickly segment the dashboard to a condition that they care about most, right? That's going to be part of both part of your data structure, but also part of your presentation design. So filters at the top, easy to quickly drop down, select your boxes, and suddenly the data matches what you're looking for.
And keep it simple.
Yes.
Right.
Oh my God.
Don't have too many widgets on your dashboard and one widget answers exactly one question. Right. Don't try to do multiple things in one widget and then you have to have 25 different filters be applied that nobody will remember how to do that once it goes live, right? So keep it simple for your users. Say, okay, you have 4 types of information that you want to convey, have 4 widgets there.
Exactly. And then also the next big piece of the puzzle I like to think about is the meta-analysis of dashboards, right? Because one of the things you're trying to do is you're trying to tell a story. So lining up your dashboards in an order, in a widget in an order, will help people traverse that story. So what did we do here? Then what happened? Okay, then how did that interact with a vendor? How did that interact with our people? What did that tie into something like a processor task mining? Where did I get that information from? And how am I going to live the process through looking at my dashboard so I can quickly understand where something might be off, or something might be broken because my story no longer makes sense. So figure your stories out, tell good stories, and then when they're broken, you can quickly see them and be able to know where to react to.
And I think we come full to closure right now because the story for one stakeholder might be a different one than the one for the other one.
That's true.
Right? So what happens then? You build all that, you went through the UAT, everything is fine, everything works, your data pipes work and all that wonderful stuff in the background. What do you do next then, JM?
You got to roll them out, man. You got to give people access to these dashboards. And first and foremost, it's not just turning it on because that's going to give you a bad result. It's enablement that goes alongside turning on this functionality. That's going to be walking people through the stories that you've drawn out, walking people through the widgets, showing them the features and functionality and options for filtering and dimension calculations, and showing them what kind of information they can get from it and what they should do about that information. Draw up their day in a life of using the dashboard and help them to live that by giving them the enablement they need at the time you're rolling it out. Absolutely.
Yeah, what I also would recommend to do is in your dashboards, most of them have some form of tabs, where you can have different tabs. Use one of the tabs to explain what people see.
Like a legend.
Right?
Yeah.
To say, yeah, like a legend, if you will, right? People read it one time and then they get it and they just look at the other tabs, right? The other thing that I would recommend is some of the dashboarding tools allow you to put in notes to your individual widgets.
Yes.
To say, oh yeah, I have a bar chart and it goes like this. Oh, there's a trend line in there. And then you have maybe in a corner a little circle with an eye for information in there, or whatever visualization. And you click on it and then it explains to you, oh, this widget with this title talks about blah, blah, blah. Oh, when you look at the different data lines, well, the trend line will give you this, while the bars will give you that information. So make it easy for them to understand it.
Absolutely. Well,
and then the last tip that I would have, if I may,
please,
would be give every widget a title and a subtitle.
Yeah.
Right. So the title is, what do I see? Right. What is this widget all about? You can articulate this as a question, if you will. How many escalations do we have in our incident process? Right. But then in the subtitle, you put some high-level explanation there. Oh, these are escalations in total. This widget does not show, because that might be another one, show cases that have multiple escalations, where it goes from a level 1 to a 2 to a 3. These are two different widgets, but the title will give your users a first understanding of, oh, this is the total universe of my escalations. Oh, and by the way, out of that total universe, second widget, this is a subset that has multiple escalations.
Well, that makes sense to me, Roland. Well, I think we've heard today a bunch of different things. We want to talk first about stakeholders, we talked about KPIs and measures, the systems you grab in those KPIs from, the dashboarding design through, first and foremost, wireframing, and then creation of widgets and emergent features and storytelling throughout the whole life cycle, and then some tips and tricks to make it all come together with good visualization for good data. And I got to say, this is a ton of fun, my friend. This is hopefully everyone takes this away and loves what we're doing, likes, subscribes, and shares all this stuff about What's Your Baseline, and goes to what'syourbaseline.com for lots more about all of this. Well, for the last time in this one, my name is J.M. Erlandson.
And I'm Roland Volt.
And we will see you in the next one.
In the next one.